Okay, right, hi. Me again. Decided to try and give some kind of update uh, from my perspective on the situation, for anyone who's interested. Now, I had been worrying a lot about the mutation rate of this COVID-19 virus, the nCoV or SARS-CoV-2 as it's sometimes known. Now, what I've used is the NextStrain /org website, and had a little bit of confusion with it for a little while because it turned out that the data wasn't comparable. In other words, when you look on the site, if you go to it and you look at dataset flu, which I think is something we can all relate to, you find that it tells you the mutation rate. It's a bit cryptic. It's 3.53 E minus 3 subs per site per year. And what that means is, well, it's quite a high mutation rate, as we all know, which is why the flu vaccine changes, because it becomes obsolete quite easily. And the worry is, does nCoV also mutate at the same rate? And what I've been able to find out for you is that it doesn't mutate at such a high rate, and that in some ways is good news. It mutates, the information they give is a rate estimate of 25.867 subs per year. But what they don't give, if you listen carefully, you would have heard that with flu I said subs per site per year, and this just says subs per year. So what we have to do is actually divide that figure by the size of the genome. Okay, so seeing as the genome is 29,900 and something base pairs, so when we divide this rate estimate by that, we come out with a figure of 0.000868374, and that is, let's see, I can do that calculation for you now. If we look at the flu rate and we divide it by the COVID rate, what we find is the COVID virus is mutating 4 times slower than flu, or rather flu is mutating 4 times faster than the COVID virus. Now in some ways that's good news, because anything we can get we'll take with this virus, any help we can get. So because it's mutating 4 times slower, there's a chance that the vaccines might work, whereas if it was mutating at the same rate as flu, I would be very, very worried, because not only do we have to get a basic immunity to the basic flu virus, which most of us have picked up fairly well the first time we ever got a flu virus, but then we also have to be able to upgrade that as soon as the new flu virus comes along, the new strain. Now, children, of course, get some of that immunity from drinking their mother's milk. But in this case, they won't be getting any immunity from their mother's milk because the mother's never seen this virus before. Older children, however, when they get this nCoV virus, and young children, they are able to somehow cope. Now, of course, it's a new virus, so a lot of experts are left saying, well, we just don't know because we don't know enough about this virus yet. And I would agree, we don't know, but we have to try and anticipate. So what we can do is take the information that we have, and we can now relax a bit. I've made a couple of other YouTube videos I plan to put on YouTube videos that I've had to delete one from YouTube quickly, and the other one stopped uploading because I was making a mistake on the mutation rate. I thought it was higher than flu, and because it's lower, I personally can relax a bit. But you've got to realize I was incredibly stressed out, incredibly hyped up, and not that I wanted to cause a panic, but I did want to cause an immediate shift in policy. Now, hopefully people will actually say, well, okay, we'll at least still listen to the general mission, general message, which is that 4 times 4 times slower mutation rate than flu, that might buy us some time, but it's still quite high. I mean, it's higher than measles and mumps, but it's quite close to measles and mumps. And measles and mumps we have been able to develop vaccines to. Now, there is, of course, a difference because we don't, as I've said, we don't have parents, mothers in particular, who have been exposed to this virus before, whereas they have been exposed to measles and mumps, almost certainly. Yeah. Now we also have other viruses which we can look at, or bacteria, and interestingly, tuberculosis has a very, very, very low mutation rate, but at the same time, we've not been able to develop a vaccine against it, and the chances are because it's able to change its genome in just a way as to evade our immune system, but not to change very much else about itself. And I don't think we can really compare bacteria when it comes to these mutation rates with viruses. We really need to stick with viruses. And of course, the common cold is caused by a coronavirus. So we already know there's no point in trying to immunize against a common cold. So that's why I'm worried that these very same experts that say, well, we will develop a vaccine against nCoV, or nCoV, against COVID-19, are willing to suddenly say, oh yes, we'll have no problem developing a vaccine to this. I think people have got to be aware that they will have a problem developing a vaccine. They will have to continually issue upgrades to the vaccine that they've issued. Nobody realistically should be allowed to take the vaccine until it has been proven both efficacious and low risk. Efficacious means it does actually cure the disease or prevent the disease, and low risk means it doesn't do anything nasty to you. They can't guarantee that without running clinical trials, so if you don't get any immunity to it at all, unless they can develop a useful drug, which they might, but you'll be dependent on it, the best thing to do is get immunity now, and the only way you can get that is to relieve the lockdown in the majority of countries around the world. And it's a serious matter, not just for disease and healthcare, but it's also a matter for your civil liberties, your civil freedoms, your rights, that because of how you thought it was portrayed to you how it was, you've allowed this lockdown to happen. You haven't gone on protests, you haven't disobeyed the law, you haven't rioted, and that's fine, that's good. I'm glad you haven't, because we need to get change, and the only way we're going to get change is by peaceful demands. So we have to stress that this is, because it's 4 times slower mutation rate than flu, it's still a very, very high mutation rate. And so we have to stress that we cannot be reliant on vaccines. We have to have a situation where we have the majority of people develop immunity naturally to the strains as soon as they come out by socially mixing and therefore strengthening their immune system. And whenever the new strain comes along, they say, well, I've already got some foundation protection against COVID-19 because I had it last year. Yeah. Or maybe in 10 years' time, we'll be talking to children and they'll say, well, my mummy had it and she passed on the protective antibodies to me in her milk. Now, at the moment, we're not worrying, it's not a childhood disease. Children contract it, but they show no symptoms. And that's why I think it's vitally important, as I said in my previous message, that we realize that this is a blessing from God to give us, not to kill all our old people and all our sick people, all people with cancer and all of that. That is terrible, it's horrifying. But God is so almighty and so powerful, if he wanted to wipe us all out, he could, and this virus, we need our children to get immunity to it as soon as possible. That's all I can say. I know I'm going to take some flack for saying it, but I think an intelligent response will be, well, actually, you're right. So if I'm right, when do we end the lockdown? And I think we have to end it. Personally, I think we have to end it immediately. And we have to replace it with a lockdown to prevent vulnerable people getting it. And that will save our NHS. That will make the life of our health workers a lot easier, but at the same time it will protect us and our societies for the future. Whereas if we don't, we're relying on something that can't be invented. And I still think that, even looking at this data here and now, even though I made mistakes and on analysing it, I'm fairly sure now that I'm right, that the difference is 4.06. So if you divide flu rate by the COVID rate. So, I'm just doing what I can to raise awareness of this. And if you recognise the importance of my message, you'll pass it on to others who you care about, and we will be able to hopefully change the policy on this for the sake of our children. Thank you.